Friends, whenever something massive begins to fall, it doesn't collapse all at once. First, you hear a tiny crack, then a tremor. And finally, the entire system starts to shake. Today, the world is standing at exactly that moment. Because the US dollar, long considered the most powerful and trusted currency on earth, is now facing serious questions. And what makes this moment historic is this. These questions are no longer coming from rival nations or fringe economists. They're coming from the International Monetary Fund itself. Now think about this for a second. What happens when the world's most trusted currency starts to weaken? What does it mean when countries begin reducing their dollar reserves? And why is gold suddenly breaking one record after another? Is this just a coincidence? Or are we witnessing a fundamental shift in the global financial order? Let's break this down in the simplest possible way. To understand the strength of the dollar, there's a key indicator called the dollar index. The rule is very straightforward. Above 100, the dollar is strong. Below 100, the dollar is under pressure. Right now, the dollar index is hovering around 96. That means the dollar is clearly weakening. And this is not a one-day event. For nearly a full year, the dollar index has remained below 100. But here's where the real concern begins. The share of the US dollar in global foreign exchange reserves has dropped to its lowest level in decades. In simple words, countries around the world no longer trust the dollar the way they used to. And trust doesn't disappear overnight. When nations change reserve behavior, it means something deeper is happening. This is why the IMF's warning is so critical. The IMF has openly stated that the world has become over-dependent on the US dollar and US government bonds, and that countries must now prepare alternative financial paths. In fact, the IMF is actively studying what could happen if large amounts of money suddenly flow out of the dollar system. So the next logical question is, why is the dollar under so much pressure? There are four major reasons. First, America's debt problem. US national debt has grown so large that it now exceeds the size of the entire US economy. Second, chronic overspending. Year after year, the United States spends far more than it earns, and that gap keeps widening. Third, expected interest rate cuts. Lower rates mean more dollars in circulation, which can further reduce the currency's value. Fourth, policy uncertainty. Frequent shifts in economic and geopolitical policies have left global investors confused and cautious. Now here's the most important question. If money is leaving the dollar, where is it going? The answer is clear. Capital is being redistributed. European currencies are strengthening. The British pound is gaining ground. Japanese and Australian currencies are showing renewed momentum. In other words, the world is no longer placing all its trust in a single currency. At the same time, many countries are reducing their holdings of US Treasury bonds and aggressively increasing their gold reserves. That is exactly why gold prices are exploding. Gold is setting new all-time highs in international markets. And in countries like India, gold has reached historic levels. History tells us one thing very clearly. When trust in paper currencies weakens, gold becomes the ultimate safe haven. So this is not just about the dollar. This is about a global financial reset slowly taking shape, quietly, steadily, and strategically. The cracks are visible, the tremors are real, and the world is preparing for what comes next. The only question is, are we paying attention?